Welcome to Beyond Tech. I'm your host, João Almeida, and in this episode we're talking about generative AI and product management with our illustrious guest, Tiago Pinto, PO, product owner inside MB.io. In your review cycle, you reviewed me as the best developer you've ever seen. What have you got to say about the other developers in your team that are watching this?
They are also pretty good.
Let's just go. So, generative AI. How, as you see generative AI in everywhere and everything, everybody's using it. 71% I think of users are already using it inside their workflows in product development teams. How has Gen AI impacted your decision making, your brainstorming parts of the workflow? Has it changed anything at all in your workflow day to day?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. I see it personally like really as an assistant, right? Like a second brain. I give a lot of context to it, like in my day-to-day, like I have an assistant with access to all my Jira projects, like our Confluence with internal documentation, like technical documentation about my product, our solution that we provide. And he remembers even better than I am, right? So he has a better memory, for sure. But that helps me, for instance, like I think a lot of POs and PMs see that we no longer have like that blank page syndrome, right? So a new feature comes up, so okay, your PM has some requirements, your technical architect has some like technical inputs and so on, and then okay, you can quickly have like a first point that you have like a document, something that okay, you could work on top of it, right? Even on a personal learning, not just also related with, it's indirect related with my PO work, because this is a really fast-paced technologies, right? So we need to constantly be also learning. And I read a lot of like articles, investigations, and so on. But sometimes I don't have so much time to be like sitting and reading. So for instance, I like to use tools like Notebook LM that you could just grab some document, right, and make a podcast of it. Yes, some sites already have it, or some documents already have that feature, but for even the ones that don't have, like we have these tools that we can quickly have a podcast, and if I am having a walk, I'm working out, doing some house chores or whatever. I also, in a personal level, I also like to work of it. And even in my day-to-day, with a lot of developers, SRE, Cloud Ops, and so on, sometimes some of our features, after okay, we start working on them, they, for instance, require a lot of investigation. And so when I get to some like team sessions, like refinement, so on, I can quickly use AI to okay, understand okay, what was the progress till now, if we are in a situation that we need to do pros and decisions, right? Like what was the pros and cons of different solutions or approach that the team is investigating, just so I can have a better standpoint to have a productive discussion with the team in the refinement. Okay, so we do not catch up. So a lot of scenarios I would say that I see impacting in my day-to-day.
Okay, awesome. Because now the question is, in where of those areas, for example, even prototyping, seeing your designs, checking user feedback. For example, if you have a lot of user feedback, you could just summarize everything on with generative AI. Where do you feel it has the most impact in your day-to-day? And then again, afterwards, where it's the least impact, or you see at least not now using it, never now, let's say.
I think in the product role, there are probably like three big areas that okay, people see that generative AI could influence, like discovery, prioritizations, and even like in terms of backlog management, let's say. What I think impacts the most is discovery, because like you have different sources of customer inputs, customer interviews, customer reviews, and so on, market analysis, and then all that like that amount of data that some people, product people, will spend a lot of time to analyze, to take some outcomes, become really much more easier to get some important outcomes from that data, right? So I think, and then I can also give some context of how I'm using it in the day-to-day, but I think for that, like that part of discovery and even research, like what are your competitors doing, what is like the state of art for some technology that you might be starting to work on. I think that really takes a lot of that manual work that some product people were doing, and then you can really focus on, okay, trying to give value to the product that we are developing. Writing stories or backlog management, yes, I think it still impacts because it's manual / boring work. That okay, you might not, depending on your level, how much you delegate to the Scrum team or not, but you might be spending some time. And okay, it takes that manual work from you. It's quicker, might even be more detailed and so on. But then you could even have like a draft, so then the team can iterate on top of it. But I think discovery has a bigger impact. Okay, in terms of backlog grooming, support, reducing the manual work. In terms of prioritization, I would say that have the least impact, in my opinion. Because yes, it can give you like pros and cons or different approach. It might give you like giving you some insights, some approach that you were missing and something. But then in the end, prioritization depends also in strategy, in politics, in constraints that you might have in the team. So there are a lot of small details in terms of context that okay, like your model, your assistant, whatever, will need to know to help you. So I think more in prioritization, I just see it less relevant. Maybe can give you inputs, but for sure not like decision making for you.
So it's basically it's a shared thing around product development that you just told us, and all other people have said it also. It's automating the boring part so we can focus on value. But then again, the part of decision making, the prioritization, foundation models still lack or AI agents still lack the context and culture even of the teams of the company. So it's still a little bit, we can't still offload that part to AI. Going through another route, if you check LinkedIn, everybody's saying that you're not using AI right. If you're seeing everything hype around AI, you should use AI, you should blah, 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 blah. But now there comes a temptation of sprinkling a little bit of AI on every new feature that it needs to be on a product development. So now a new thing comes, let's use AI. How do you distinguish between AI as like a shiny new marketing thing, or as no, AI is the best way to solve this problem in this case?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's really tough to don't get tempted to go on the AI hype, right? Like, okay, we just not doing AI for the sake of, or using AI tool for the sake of doing. Maybe I can give you one of example, because okay, I'm a PO of a platform engineering team, internal one, right? So we really provide a lot of support for developers and so on that are using our product, our services. And one of the things, as part of it, we received like a lot of support requests, like technical queries and so on. And it got to a point that, okay, although we have documentation and so on, but we were spending a lot of our time instead of focusing on developing the product, but also supporting our developers and so on, answering their questions. So we had a real problem that was like the amount of time that we were just spending on like support, and we wanted to reduce that. So we built a support agent that has all of the context about our tools, our documentation, and so on. And then he acts as a first line of support. So once again, it's not like just for the sake of developing something. It's okay, we have a problem, so let's use these new features or these new tools to address that problem, to then we can focus on the important, let's say, relevant stuff. First, this is one of our examples, let's say, in our day-to-day, that I think that we are using it best. Also in the same scenario, all of this information that we receive, support requests and so on, it's good to analyze trends, patterns, right? Because myself as a product owner, if I see I don't know, area of our platform that receives dozens of questions around the same topic. So probably if users are having some issue, trouble or doubts about that, so probably it's an area of improvement that we could tackle, right? Even if it's documentation, try to improve it and so on. So even analyzing this information is really good. So okay, I know that we are working on the issues that users face it, right? Maybe more in terms of internal teams, as I was mentioning regarding the not having a blank page, but for instance, prototyping. Nowadays, POs and PMs are really being, I would say, like a lot of already adopting like prototyping, because yes, if you start a new feature or something, and then you want to bring the idea to the team, but this is a blank page or something, okay, we are humans, so the discussion starts to increasing, but then we need sometimes to get to a point that everyone has the same context and so on, and brainstorming ideas. So if we, based on the requirements and so on, if you already have a one-pager, like a base for the work, or even if it's, I don't know, a user interface that some time ago we needed some, front end, maybe to do a prototyping and so on, to present to the team just the idea what we would like to achieve. But now with the tools, it's easier for the PM or the PO to just, prototype, draft, right? Not meant that the team will not be involved, the team will always be involved, but just so we could pass the idea, the message, what we intend, and to have a base point. I think that are like the really good use cases for that. And maybe just the last example around like communications, because could be product release communication, could be stakeholder management communication. I think that I always were comfortable with it. I never had an issue like, how to make a structured communication. But I think it just increases productivity. Yeah. Because once again, for instance, my assistant knows that, we have a structured way what we want to communicate if it's a product release, a summary, if there is any timelines for that, or if there is a communication that will require something from our internal users, like with action needed. So he knows the structure that we always want to pass. And as all the context of the features that we are developing, so I could just spin up really a quick draft, and then I fine tune according to my language style, my needs. But once again, that draft that popped up, and then I can just fine tune, I think increases the productivity, which is nice. Okay, awesome. So a lot in communication, so it's really easy to summarize, just to send and structure it the way you wanted. You even talked about now for example, the support AI agent. What do you do when that fails, right? So, for example, traditional software is deterministic, right? So you click a button, the software is well made. If you do it once or twice, it will always have the same results. Again, if it's well made, sometimes. With AI, with generative AI, the result is probabilistic. How do you handle that user experience? How do you build trust in your users that they shouldn't trust blindly the results because it's probabilistic, but also make them more engaged on the results of the AI agent, in that case the support bot, for example, or any other use case that you have AI? Okay, so yeah, that is a really area of let's say not concerned, but we really need to focus. I think one of the main areas is really to use citations, and we can see in like even every model and so on, if it's in line, if it's just to, then to show the user, these are the answers that are based in this source, because then the users could always judge, and really do a review, right? If the output is something that you expected or not. But then, they have access to the information that the LLM was based on that answer. Nowadays, there's also like those rate buttons in the answers, right? That you could thumbs up, thumbs down. That then you could have some inputs about the answer. we see even some LLMs sometimes like doing A/B testing, like providing like 2 answers to the user and say, hey, okay, what does make sense more to you? But yeah, I think it's really to try to, and also use the metrics, the usage metrics that we always have been using, right? You try to understand, how is your tool, your application, so on, behaving based on user inputs.
Yeah. So usage of the original sources, and the users also have that available. Yeah. Observability, always, and then closing the feedback loop to your users. Right? Exactly. So now we're talking about using foundational models on our products. For example, foundational models are becoming more of a commodity, right? And if you are building, for example, a solution like the support agent or something like that, and you are building on top of those foundational models, how do you build like a defensible moat? Like, how do you ensure your position that another team later won't just do the same as you, just copy your prompts and build a better solution or just the same solution as you? Because the foundational models are becoming more generally available to everybody, and everybody can now build products on top of that. How do you build that, this is my product, and we have something special that nobody can imitate?
I think, in my opinion, the key is like the information that you have, the integrations that you have, right, and the problem that you are trying to address with your product. Because a model is generic, has some information, but then what are you really trying to solve for the user, right? It's and if you do that work correctly, you understand what is the problems of your user. You are not doing just a generic solution that could be easily replicated, but you are addressing those needs and to make sure you have value on your products.
Yeah. So it's basically closing the feedback loop, like we talked with the teams, with our clients, let's say with our stakeholders or with our users, which it's almost the same as we did with usual products, right? It's like AI, it's making teams rediscover the principles of product development, but now it's more showing in your face when you're failing them, right?
Exactly. So I think it's more than ever important, to have those closed loops, to have that feedback from the users, because it helps to take a lot of the administrative work, the boring work. So that I think when I say increasing productivity in the tools, it's like that. If you are not having like so much time to do that administrative work, that part analysis and so on, you have more time to focus on the users, focus on making the right decisions for the product.
So we're talking about AI products, and an AI product is famously at its worst at its launch day, right? Because it still doesn't have any feedback. It's supposed to get better as people are using it. What types of feedback loops do you have in your AI products?
Yeah. So, for instance, in the case that we were talking about the support agent, right? Like, once again, is the context, like the context that you give to the model, right? In this case, if they are we initially had just access to the questions or the documentation that we have, but then we can also evaluate these answers, and then with more context of answers questions that we receive and the answers that the chatbot and even ourselves as engineers provide, we will learn more and more and also refine that. We also ask users' inputs, because if they consider that question was correctly answered or not, also to evaluate those answers like in the ranking. It's normal that when users start to use our tools, the quality might not be good or something, but there are always some fine-tuning that they could pass, like some custom instructions and so on. And I think is there is a really important role for the PO to, once again, be really close to the users of the tool. What is your experience to the tool? How can we improve? What is maybe falling behind? That is something that we could address. So once again, I think it's more important than ever that we are close to the users, we really get their inputs. As you are mentioning, right, is basically just putting more focus on the whole product development life cycle, that you should hear your users and then really get their feedback. And maybe in the past our solutions were more mature and so on and really stable, but now we are testing new grounds, new solutions. That's we need to make sure that we could incorporate all the possible feedback on the solutions itself.
So it's not just building AI features for the sake of building AI features, it's always remembering where it's the value, which is the user. The user knows where the value is, so we have to go behind them. But now we have a big issue with AI, right? It's because generative AI features are not just expensive to build, they are also expensive to maintain, right? Every time a user asks a question, inference costs, latency costs. How do you figure out that this feature is actually generating value to the user? Probably again, let's repeat it, feedback loops, but observability, do any success metrics on those features that you might have used or know of?
The costs, maybe if you ask some business, they will think that the cost is just the API calls, bill that they receive for some model or something. But no, the total cost of ownership is much bigger than that, right? You have development time from people, you have all the infrastructure that you might be self-hosting some of the parts of your application. So you have all of these total cost of ownership. I think that metrics more than ever, right? We should measure the adoption of your tools. You could be building a code assistant or whatever tool that you think that might help the developers, but are you measuring if they are really using it or not? Because if you see a greater and nowadays I think in everything regarding AI is the adoption rates, right? Everyone is looking for that. Companies are really pushing for developers to adopt code assistant and so on, and then measuring that. But at least in one part, adoption rate will show you that people are using it. Yeah. But then in terms of the quality, right? So you can also see once again for the rate buttons, what they feel that if the solutions are good or not. The observability, if the solution is stable or not, so we really should look for product metrics, right, to see if people are using it, but then if they are taking really advantage of it. For instance, once again, even our support bot, we have some ways that the requester could mention if that question was useful or not. So. And those feedbacks are once again always incorporate on the context of the solution.
Yeah. So even comparing with reducing the time of your firefighters, now they're reducing their time on firefighting because they have now the support bot. So now you can also even compare. They used to answer 8 questions a day, now 3 at most. We can check also that part. I would even ask you now, instead of just now integrating AI features on product development, again, usage of AI, we now see almost everything blurring it, which is the software developers are needing to think more strategic, an architect would think of a solution, because now orchestrating AI agents and the syntax is getting less important. But we're also seeing the strategic parts, the POs, PMs, getting more technical. So it's we're now getting a melting pot of not specific roles, but the ability of using AI to generate value. Where do you think you see the PO role, the product owner, in the future with generative AI?
You mentioned one thing that's it's really important, and I completely agree that even AI is making us a little bit more like the orchestrator and not the doer, right? But in my opinion, it would still be separate because developers might be orchestrate agents and so on to develop code and so on. POs might orchestrate and use AI to really once again offload that manual work and so on, those tasks. But in the end, like decision making, like really see decisions on what are the best features to work on, what value that will bring to the product. But even if you are not doing that part of the manual work, like making sure that the team is aligned, like like in terms of the vision, what we want to the product and so on. I think that will still be completely separate from a developer, from a PO perspective. Yes, POs might start prototyping and so on, but I think will be more like to support their work and not like will not like replace like a front end or something, right? Because in the end, that is not just building the product, is stakeholder management, evaluating if that is the correct feature. That decision making is still really important, relevant. That takes time, so I think it's more product owners will focus more on that.
Okay, and everybody talks about the same thing, which is automating the boring stuff, which is good, right? And everybody talks about how AI is automating the boring part, even of different roles. But it's not all roses and daisies in our workflow, right? Is there any negative part you see on using AI in your day-to-day? Anything you see that it's still not up to date? AI is still not catching up? We know about hallucinations and stuff. Where do you see it still needs more work?
For sure, there's like a little bit of let's say risks in adopting. For instance, in MB.io we are developing digital products for Mercedes-Benz, right? A brand with a lot of legacy. We just celebrated last month like 140 years, right? A big reputation. So everything, as you are mentioning with hallucinations, that everything that is customer facing really needs to be tested, validated, monitored, because once again, models are improving, but hallucination, we all still see reports of chatbots like doing all kinds of sorts of hallucinations, and there is a reputation, a legacy of the brand to protect. So for sure that is really be taken into account. I would say even privacy and security, depending on, of course, company internal policies and so on, we might be tempted to use a lot of different tools and so on, but we know that these tools use all the context that we give them to the train themselves, and every day we work with sensitive information, right? So we really need to be aware of it. It's not just the speeds that gives us and so on, the velocity is really increasing, but all these constraints that depending on the company you might have or not needs to be taken into consideration. From a product owner perspective, I think it's also changing a little bit the team's dynamics with vibe coding, because has a lot of benefits, of course, like developer is increasing velocity and so on. But in the end of the day, we do like solutions that are like production ready, that are customers, right? So there's always these recent terms of the AI slop. You don't just have like code and production that is not maintainable in the long run, right? So yes, it has a lot of advantages. Developers are really good, but we still need to make sure that everyone understands the code is maintainable in the long run. And from a PO perspective, this is important because you want to make sure that you are not introducing tech debt and putting in jeopardy your solution implemented in the long run, right? But also on a personal level, although it helps a lot in my daily work, there is also a big human factor behind it. Like, it helps me with the communication, with structuring my work, but once again, at a personal level, I still want that my engagements with the team feel authentic, right? I don't want that they receive, communications from myself or with our stakeholders that just feel like fully AI built, right? That they are not, and And even that is more important in the team organization, team dynamic. I still want that to be, that was the reason that I was saying that, okay, usually I use this for the draft and then I fine tuning, so that still feels that, okay, it's my style, it's my type of the communication that has empathy, because, okay, still that human factor in the team's motivation and organization is important, the empathy, so that AI doesn't have it, right? So I think these, I don't know, 3-4 risk things that I could think about needs to be taken into consideration.
Really awful when you see on top of a message, certainly here's an announcement that increases the productivity of your team. Okay, so it's increasing value, it's increasing the velocity, but at what cost, right? We still need to, and again, we're always coming back to, it's like it's becoming more apparent those original principles of product development, of software development, of causing feedback loops, always get close to your users, write maintainable clean code, and now review it even better, communication. Like you talked about, if one is vibe coding, probably it gets also more isolated from the rest of the team, because one-man army now can build an entire product. Of course, then again, with AI slop can become a thing, because there's no review also, because you're doing everything yourself. So it's becoming more apparent, those principles of software development. So it's like AI, it's just turning those principles more apparent to product teams as a whole. Saying that, to close things off, what skills do you think product owners will need to have today, in the future, of course, crystal ball again, that, for example, 5 years ago, they would need to have, but now, today, 5 years from now, you think those skills don't matter anymore, and what skills are emerging as more important?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like, we don't have a crystal ball to know what will happen in 5 years, but I think what we already know, like maybe some months ago, everyone was talking, oh, prompt engineering, back and forth. But what we already know nowadays is like the AI literacy is now a common skill, like in the tech role. If it's okay, you are doesn't mean that, okay, you need to have this AI literacy because you are a developer or something. No. If you are even a product, you need to have that, right? Like, you might not know what is RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, right? But you need to know that, okay, by providing context to the models, okay, it helps you to have more information and to help in the decision making what you need to know. So there are, in terms of skills, there are something that is a base knowledge that's in product we need to know in order to leverage like the usage of the tools that we do. But also a bit, I think, in terms of mindsets. Like, I think product-related roles should really foster a little bit of experimentation. Once again, this is a really fast-paced technology. What we knew 6 months ago, or the tools that were available for us 6 months ago, nowadays it's like everything changed. So we really experiment, see this not just almost like a hobby outside of your work, but really incorporate it in our daily work. Like, okay, experiment with one tool. Does it make sense for me or not? Like, do quick experimentations, validate if this helps you or not. If yes, maybe scale it. If not, okay, just discard it, and that's it, right? So integrate really in your day-to-day work to make sure that, okay, we could use the tools as best as possible, let's say, and not just once again a hobby completely outside. Like, we cannot no more like dissociate like AI tools and with our product work, because, okay, we see all the potential risks and so on, but there are a lot of advantage to it.
Yeah. But we even talked about how technical skills are becoming more blurred, and AI for software developers are taking care of the syntax, for product owners are taking care of other boring parts. So do you think now the soft skills of a product owner, of anybody on a team of product development, or anybody, is becoming more important? Like, for example, critical thinking, to critically review the answers given from AI? Do you think those soft skills are becoming even more important than ever?
Yeah, for sure. Like once again, like if you are being an orchestrator, right? We need to. AI could give you different approaches and so on, but that was the reason that I was saying that okay, for the decision-making process is still like on the human, right? Like with the human, like the PO, or even with the team, like all the context of and technical expertise that the team has. That was the reason that I was saying that okay, I see this as a second brain assistant, right? People say, okay, this is a super productive intern. But then the decision making, the empathy across the team, really aligning communication, making sure that the communication is there, is really important, and this is something that we could not delegate, right? Even if now, okay, we might use in the future more and more agents to all do these works. The workflows might be even more complex, like because nowadays, okay, we might start with something simpler, but then we evolve it and we make it complex. But then, once again, evaluate the output of the AI, integrate it or aligning with the vision of the strategy of the company, the vision of the product, and even the human factor of the team. That is let's say, the review of the work that we could fetch from with AI tools. Yeah.
So in the end, the orchestrator of those agents, it's still super important.
Yes, for sure, yes.
Thank you so much, Tiago.
Thank you for having me once again.
This was our episode. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Cheers.